Welcome to CrossYoga and this new series called The Ancient Wisdom of Christ. My name is still Ria and I'm from Denmark and the host of this channel. Today I'll use 3 minutes to introduce this new series, and if you're not interested in that, just skip on to the moving part. But I'm going to dive into some of the words and the wisdom that Jesus said as it is written in the Bible. It's wisdom that you can use in life in general and in a life if you believe in Jesus. Now it's from Matthew 5 through 7, and this presentation that Jesus is giving there is called the Sermon on the Mount. He's speaking to crowds of people, to the Pharisees, the priests, or the politicians of those days, and he's sharing out a lot of really hardcore things that can make us think and wonder. The guy Matthew that wrote the chapter or the book, Matthew's Evangelical, or the book of Matthew, it's probably written between after Christ, 55 to 60s after Christ. Most scholars will agree on that. So before Patanjali's Yoga Sutras were probably written. Those are from 300 to 400 AD. Now, what Matthew is giving an account of what Jesus is saying is to say, okay, what is life like here on earth? Where we are scarred by our childhood maybe, or by our everyday life, by everything that's happened to us. And what is the kingdom of God like? Like that life where we live in perfect harmony and balance. And how can we strive to get more into balance with ourselves and with our own lives in the kingdom of God, and align ourselves with the purpose that we were actually born into or created into. If you're familiar with the Yoga Sutras and the 10, what we call yoga commandments, or yamas and niyamas, the verses for today will probably ring a bell. It's close to the term ahimsa, that is often used as non-violence. And Jesus spoke about this before it is actually written in the Yoga Sutras. But enough introduction. Let's get started. I hope you're seated on the mat. If not, take a seat. Root your sitting bones on the mat. And today maybe take one hand, both hands actually, down on the mat. Move your shoulders up and back, maybe just your fingertips on the mat. Ground yourself not only through your sitting bones, but also through your fingertips or the whole palm. Try to create length from shoulder blade to shoulder blade in front of your shoulders. Calm your breath. And you're welcome to pray with me in your heart. God, as we touch the ground, the mat with our hands, sitting bones, feet, let us be grounded and rooted in your wisdom and your advice for what is a good life and a life that's in line with the purpose that you created us for. You're welcome to stay here with your hands on the mat. If it doesn't feel that comfortable, just find a more comfortable seated position. And I'll read the verses from Matthew 5, verse 38 through 41. So Jesus is saying, "You have heard it is said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek too. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them for 2 miles. A radical text that actually pokes to me in a way that kind of annoys me a little bit, because I like justice, a tooth for a tooth. And of course, justice is not something we just throw out the window. You have to read those verses here in context. But it's radical love, and it's radical generosity, radical non-violence. I'll dive more into it. But for now, find your downward facing dog. As always, spread out your fingers. Take your shoulders up to your ears just for once. And then behind you, squeezing your shoulder blades a little bit together. Try to external rotate your shoulder blades a little bit so that your elbows reaches a little bit out, not touching your ears at least. Slowly paddle your feet. Move your hip. And maybe turn on your ujjayi breath, that snoring, exhaling sound. Use your nose both for inhales and exhales if you can. All right, look to the front and walk your feet to the top of the mat. Always hip width distance in between your feet, at least most of the time. Fold forward. And rise up into mountain, hands down by your side. Roll your shoulder blades back, maybe checking in with your body if there's anything you need to avoid in our practice today. Or just be a little bit more soft on. Starting with a variation of sun salutation B. Adding a little bit of extra postures. So sink down in your chair pose, hip back and sit low. Lift up your quads here, thighs a little bit. And then hinge forward from your hip, fingers reaching down. Of course, you bend your knees as much as you need. Half lift. And then we find plank. Palms on the mat, step back. And take your time to adjust. Get that alignment from hand to shoulder. Tug your shoulder blades back and down. Going to low plank, maybe on your knees for the first time here. Elbows down by your ribs as much as you can. Baby cobra, lifting your chest up. And stay here for a breath or two. Try to let go of your hands just to notice that your spine is alive and living. Muscles kicking in there. And then palms on the mat behind your shoulders. Toes on the mat, lift up. Down dog. Adjust the way you stand if you need to. Warrior one. Right leg lifted up towards the sky. Bend your knee, tuck it under your belly, and then step it to the top end of the mat. The back foot out to the side. Look to the front and rise up in warrior one. Always the option of doing high lunge instead. Try to firmly ground also the pinky toe on the back foot down into the mat so you don't fall on the arch of the foot there. Leaning forward, arms down by your side, like you're shooting air out or fire out your fingers. Arms up again, opening up our hip, our arms to warrior two, so turn the back foot further around. Whatever distance you need in between your feet, go ahead and do that. And then plank to low plank. So you windmill your arms around, lift the back heel off. Step back with the top foot there, front foot. And lower down again, toes or knees. Cobra, lifting. Feeling the back, navel in as you lift your hip up and back, down dog. And then doing exactly this on the other side. Left leg up towards the sky, three-legged dog. And then to the top of the mat. Try to see if you can step silently to the front to get that softness in your practice. Back foot around, lift up. Now move, if you can, your hip a little bit forward so that knee and ankle is somewhat aligned. Lean forward, sweeping your arms down to the mat and then behind you. Warm pose here. And then open up to warrior two. And always just look down, see if your heels are somewhat aligned. Notice your vertebrae here. Is it leaning forward or to the back? Or is it completely stacked, the vertebrae here? Like building blocks. Plank to low plank. No rush. Remember your navel in as you slowly come down. If you want to go for up dog, your hip is off the mat. Deeper back bend. And then your down dog. Remember to bend the knees. It's more important that your spine is straight than that you actually stretch your legs. Jump or walk to the top of the mat. Fold forward. Chair pose, hip back, arms somewhat aligned with the ears. And then mountain pose. Even though we were not doing it with our breath, I definitely feel warm now. Doing the sequence with the breath. Inhale, chair. Exhale, Ujjayi breath, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, plank to low plank. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, right leg reaches up. Exhale, step it through, preparing warrior one. Inhaling warrior one. Closing the hip. Exhaling, lean to the front, squeezing your shoulder blades. Inhale, preparing warrior two. And exhale, really sinking down. And stay here for one breath as you kind of create more length and strength. Inhale, finding your plank. A long inhale. And a slow exhale down towards the mat with your chest. Inhaling cobra. Exhaling down dog. The same on the other side. Left leg inhale reaches up. And stepping through. Turn the back foot there out to the side. Inhale, warrior one. Exhale, leaning forward, reaching back, sink low. Inhaling, warrior two. Adjusting your feet. Look to the front hand. Align things as you breathe. When you're ready on your inhale, prepare your plank or find your plank. Exhaling, lower down. Cobra, up dog, inhale. Exhaling, down dog. Inhale, jump or walk to the top of the mat. Fold forward, exhale. Chair, inhale. Mountain pose, exhale. One breath. Repeating one more time and just go with your own breath. We'll meet here in mountain pose if that works best for you. Chair, inhale. Exhale, fold forward. Half lift, inhale. Plank, low plank, exhale. Cobra, up dog, inhale. Down dog on your exhale. Right leg lift, inhale. Exhaling as you slowly get it to the front. Warrior one, inhale. And exhale as you lean forward, however far down you want to go. Inhaling, preparing warrior two. Exhaling, opening up your hip, and stay here for a breath. Inhale, plank, or just step back into down dog. Welcome to do that. Exhale down. Inhaling, chest lifts, shoulders down. Exhale, down dog. Left leg reaches up, creating length and stepping it through. Warrior one, of course. Reach up, inhale. Heavy Ujjayi breath, exhale. Reaching up again, warrior two, inhale. And exhale. One breath. Finding plank. Or down dog if you want. Exhale, low plank. Cobra. Down dog. Inhale, jump or walk to the top. Exhale, fold forward. Chair pose, inhale. Mountain, exhale. As you catch your breath, put your awareness back to the verse. Probably none of us has really been slapped in the head, I hope. Back in that culture, it was an insult more than a harmful hit. So if we take that into our everyday life, has anybody insulted you or hurt you? Maybe lately. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but you felt it. And is there any option for you to turn the other cheek? Open up your eyes and gather your feet and your knees as much as possible. Sink down into your chair pose again. Coming up, one of my favorite moves. Not the chair with a twist, but what we do after, actually. All right, shoulders down, palms together here in front of you. And now notice where your palms is. Maybe look down, notice where your shoulders are. And then try to stay with that alignment as you twist. Right elbow on the left side there. Notice your shoulders, they tend to move up really quickly. Your fingers move away, or your thumbs move away from your chest. But try to move that alignment that you got before we twist it. One breath. And now we go for this fun part. Right leg lifted up very slowly. See if you can keep your balance. And step right leg to the back end of the mat. Lunge pose, but with a twist. Hallelujah. Shoulders down. Lift the back heel off and stretch the back leg. Let go of the pose, high lunge, lift up, and maybe shorten the distance, lengthen the distance, whatever you need. Let's find a little bit of balance here. So stress the front leg, and maybe you want to go for that back heel a little bit down towards the mat. Of course, it's easier if you shorten the distance in between the feet. Now, hip somewhat aligned with the short end of the mat. Ooh, lots of balance going on here. Again, move down into high lunge. Going for a side stretch. So make sure your pelvis here is tucked under as much as you can. Core engaged. Right arm up towards the sky. Take a hold of your your right wrist and lean to your left side. Not leaning back, but directly to the left side, pulling your right hand or wrist a little bit to create that strength that almost, or stretch that almost goes from the shoulder here down to the heel. Release. Hands down. Three-legged dog, which means this front foot, left foot, moves up and back. Toes pointing down. Try to squeeze your inner thighs just a tiny bit more together and not opening up your hip. Move into plank, maybe with this foot elevated still. If it's too much, just lower it down. But with your plank here, try to reach out your left leg a little bit out to the side. Ooh, that's a hard pose. And back, bend the knee underneath yourself, moving into a side plank. So turn the back foot around and lift up right hand. Starfish side plank, hip in and navel in. Hands down on the mat, again, three-legged dog. Bend the knees, step it to the top end of the mat yet again. High lunge, last pose. Reaching your hands out and lean a little bit to the front so that you slowly see if you can keep your balance as you come to the top of the mat. Reaching your arms up and down by your side. Now this is hard. And forgiveness and grace towards those who offend us or somehow walk all over us, that's hard as well. But let's practice. Let's practice as we practice yoga. Practice forgiveness and grace. Toes, knees again together, chair pose. Again, shoulders down, navel in, pelvis a little bit tucked under yourself. Prayer pose. Remember what I said before with the shoulders and arms. Now your left elbow moves to your right side. Try to align your hip somewhat with the short end of the mat so you don't move your hip to the side as you twist. Gaze on the floor in front of your toes. Then it's easier to let go of left leg this time. See if you can keep your balance as you put the foot back. Lunge pose with a twist. Now maybe you want to let go of your right hand and take it on your right shoulder and move the shoulder further back. You feel that twist more deeply. Looking to center, high lunge or crescent lunge, whatever you want to call it. Catch your deep breath. Let's see if we can extend this front leg yet again. Let the back heel move somewhat down. And of course, the shorter the stance in between the feet is, the easier it is. Not that it's ever really easy. Notice that you can squeeze your inner thighs a little bit together, which will help you kind of close your hip, as we call it in yoga language. And then bend the front knee again, maybe stepping the back foot a little bit further back, high lunge. Grab your left wrist and pull it to your right side as you stretch your side. Back to center. And let's go of this pose. I hope your front thigh is feeling this right now. Hands on the mat and then three-legged dog. This time, right leg up and back. Let your fingers really reach down powerfully. Notice that elbows a little bit out to the side. And then as we did before, come into a plank. With this foot lifted. If not, just stay in your regular plank. And move a little bit out to the side. Navel in, otherwise you will not be able to do this. And then our side plank. This time right leg to your left side. And the back foot there also, toes out to left side. Left arm reaches up as high as you can. Hip reaches up. Letting go, step back, down dog. And let's take a break, child's pose. Knees on the mat, forehead on the mat, and relax. Maybe take your hands or arms down by your side. What I really, really appreciate about this passage that Jesus is saying is not that nonviolence is doing nothing. Jesus is actually telling us to be very active in the way we react to people. We are to turn the other cheek. We are to give more than we were sued for. We are to walk extra. That's not passive. Or giving up or doing nothing, being the victim. It's very actively engaging in forgiveness and in grace. Can you follow that thought? Move your hands to the top end of the mat. Puppy pose. If your knee hurts, you can definitely fold the mat a little bit. If you happen to have blocks, they are awesome to place your hands on here to just deepen the stretch a little bit. But knee and hips somewhat aligned, and your hands to the front, elbows a little bit bended, and then let your chest hang down, and maybe your forehead again reaches down. It's not child's pose, but it's somewhat close to when we don't use blocks. But your arms are so much to the front that you stretch your shoulders. Lifting up again. Seated, sit on the mat and move your feet to the top and rest. Not resting, but coming down on the mat here. Gonna move into our core for a moment. So lift the knee up, or the feet up, knee and hip aligned again. Navel in and let your lower lumbar back really squeeze heavily into the mat if you can. And then slowly let one foot reach down just a little bit, or the whole way if you're strong. And move it back. And that's it. If it tends to hurt, you can take your hands underneath your hip and just let them stay there to support your back a little bit. This flat tension in our belly. And let's do 4 more here. 2 on each side. Taking our time, really noticing how tired the lower part of the abs get as we move here. Beautiful. Feet on the mat, somewhat close to the hip. Bridge pose. Engage your root lock of pelvic floor. And from there, lift your hip up vertebrae by vertebrae. Lifting through the heels as high as you can go. And then walk your shoulder blades a little bit in. And stay here, palms on the mat, or fold your hands behind you. Squeeze your buttocks quite heavily. Lifting and lifting. Practicing breathing deeply, practicing to be in what can be a hard pose. All right, walk your shoulder blades out and slowly come down on the mat. Plow pose. If you have neck issues, back issues that you should avoid forward folds, I would just advise you to hug your knees and stay here. If you don't know plow pose, please take a look before you attempt to do this. I don't want you to move your neck, and this is important as we are in the plow pose. So no issues with your neck. Take a look. Lift your hip up and try to align your hip with your shoulders. I support my back here with my hands. Now you can bend your knees and just stay here a little bit, or hug your ears actually. Now the plow pose would be to extend the legs out and maybe your toes reach down. Now this is where I want your neck to stay still. You are welcome to join this, but please don't look at the screen. Just figure out your own path here. If you're somewhat stable, try to think of your spine as somewhat straight. Your hands may be reaching down on the floor. Also a pose that can be hard, especially hard for the respiratory system. It's hard to breathe. Coming out of it again, close your eyes, just listen to my voice. Take your hands on your lower back to support, bend your knees, so kind of hug your knees in so that your heels are towards your buttocks. Then take a hold of your lower back and your buttocks as you slowly come down on your spine. Feet on the floor, on the mat, and stay here with your eyes closed, just resting. I'd like us to find a really deep stretch for inner thighs. It's called frog pose. And it's also to make a point. But let's just find the pose first. So I'm going to fold my mat on the wide length here because it's just better. If you have blankets, that might be a great thing for your knees as well. Now, if this is not accessible to you, butterfly pose. Seated with your legs out to the side, knees bended. That's the better way to do it. All right, knee out to the side and knee and hip aligned. Your feet back there is flexed like a frog, I would think it look like. And just by standing here, your inner thighs, groins will be heavenly, well, maybe also heavenly, but heavily stretched, at least mine are. Now, it might be comfortable to come down on blocks or just elbows and stay here for a bit, trying to relax your thighs and let your body accept this deep stretch. My point with this pose, it is hard. And sometimes when things are hard and it's hard to forgive, we tend to become victims of our circumstances. So instead of turning the other cheek or walking the extra mile, we might just shrink together and cry and feel sorry about the circumstances, feel sorry for ourselves. And then we are a victim of the circumstances. Maybe you know that. Are you prone to be a victim? I think we all are at different circumstances, but Still, it doesn't have to be the thing we always choose. Now come up on your hands again and see if we can actually get out of this pose. Oh, I like to do it slowly. Tabletop. And you can move a little bit around as feel good. A back bend. Right leg, move it up and back, flex the foot. Right hand reaches up and behind you. So you kind of rotate the shoulder back, blade back. Take a hold of your foot and you can stay here. Or if you want actually to get the back bend, navel down and kind of kick your foot into your hand. Lifting the knee up, not out to the side, but up. Creating length in front of your chest. Lift through that hip, the standing leg, so you don't sink out to the side and get into a somewhat not comfortable hip position. Extend, reach in just for a moment, and let go. I know this is hard on our wrist as well, but try to go with me. You can always come out on your fist actually if you like. Other side, left leg up, flex the foot, navel down, reach that arm out, rotate so that your thumb is up, because that will give you a stretch here in your shoulder as well, which is really nice. Again, kick your foot or ankle into your hand, create length, breathe. You are not called to be a victim. So maybe you need to let go as we let go of this hand, knee and elbow together. And release. Sink back into child's pose. A pose that is awesome for surrender. Rick Warren said in a sermon that I heard that we are more influenced by our choices than by our circumstances. The way we choose to react is way more important than what have ever happened in our lives. So here in child's pose, maybe you want to surrender. Asking for help, I know it's hard to forgive, I know. And it's not something easily done. But ask for God's help to forgive, to be the better person. So God, help us to turn the other cheek, to give what we hold on to or feel is justice. And walk that extra mile even though we don't think it's fair. Remember, you're always welcome to pause the recording if you need more time to surrender or to pray. Just a few more minutes and then we're done with the class for today. So find a comfortable seated position on the mat again, just as we did in the beginning. Take your right hand above your head, going for a neck stretch, and then move your right ear towards your right shoulder. This hand can either be out to the side or behind you. You can choose what works best. And as a stretch, I'll read the message version of this short passage. Here is another old saying that deserves a second look. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Is that going to get us anywhere? Here's what I propose. Don't hit back. If someone strikes you, stand there and take it. If someone drags you into court and sues for the shirt of your back, gift wrap your best coat and make a present of it. And if someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice their servant life. Stay with that passage, but let go of your head. Release any pain from the stretch and move to the other side. Let's practice servanthood instead of victimizing ourselves. And pull your head back. And during this series, I will always end with time to take this wisdom into practice in our everyday life, either laying down, but today seated. So I'll finish seated on the mat, but of course you're welcome to lay down after. But sit however works best for you. I like actually my hands in prayer pose just for this one. As a prayer or just as an intention of your heart, maybe picture one or two people that you need to show more grace or servanthood towards. Either in the way you think about them or in the way you act towards them. And pray for them. Amen. Thank you so much for joining. And I hope you'll enjoy this series where we dive into the ancient wisdom of Christ. Thank you for sharing the videos, for subscribing and helping this channel move out to way more people. There's so many people who need to hear about the wisdom of Jesus. So thank you for helping me do that. See you.